What's up, y'all? So I want to talk about fishing windows. If you're unfamiliar with a fishing window or a bite window, it's when there's like a time period that those fish are willing to bite. And so most people, associate a fishing window with, say, some wind comes in and then all of a sudden a chatterbait bite opens up. Yes, if that activates them for fishing, if a warm front activates them for fishing, a cold front, if in Florida, if it drops in temperature a lot, there's a big cold front that comes through that usually will, make the fishing tougher if it's a big enough drop in temperature. But even during that cold front, bass still have to eat. They need energy. And so there will be these fishing windows when they bite. Now, I'm not saying try to find out the fishing windows so that you just go out and only fish that time period, because in my opinion, the best time to fish is as long as you can fish. But I think before I talk about this anymore, and something really interesting happened yesterday about a fishing window that I will show you and talk to you about. But I think Bass Forecast. So if I open up Bass Forecast, and then I've already entered in lakes that I like to fish. Lake Panasoffkee is a lake near me. It's not my favorite lake. It's always choked out in eelgrass. But if we go over, they call it Spot on Solunar. Solunar. But they do something really interesting here. So if you see, they have major time in blue and minor time in green. So I'm just going to read off what this says for this particular lake. And I'll tell you that this doesn't seem to be always exactly accurate, but there's variables that could make it seem not accurate when it actually is. So if I'm out fishing, I'm not catching anything at this time. You might not be near the fish. You might not be on the right side of the lake. You might not be throwing the right baits. You might not be working the baits correctly. But if you're in the right place, at the right time, throwing the right baits the right way, this does seem to be pretty accurate, I would say. Like, just looking at the times, I would say that seems about accurate. Now, I would always just use this as a resource and then find out for yourself how accurate it is. But it says major time, 7:22 to 9:22 a.m. So, it's about sunrise, 7:15, and the sun sneaks up a little bit before that. I would say that is a good time, but I personally would try to even fish a hair before that. But that is a good time. And it also says 7:46 p.m., so that's like when the sun's going down, to 9:46 p.m. And I would say that is a good time also, but it seems to me like I've gotten some good bites. I caught a 19 and a quarter the other day, and it was not that late, but it was like the sun was going down. It felt like it was cooling a little earlier in the day, and that's something just fell. And that's when I got a good bite, big female, 19 and a quarter, decent female. And minor time, 2:40 a.m. to 3:40 a.m. I'll just have to take their word for it because I'm not fishing at that time. But 1:10 p.m. to 2:10 p.m. and early afternoon, that's when we got our bites yesterday. Like, that is when. But here's how crazy yesterday was. So I just thought I'd show you that. I don't know how well it's showing on camera. But, you can download the app. I'm not affiliated with them in any way. And if you click on this in the top corner, it tells you what their Bass Forecast rating explained. So it's a bass pattern is post spawn. It's a stable barometer, and it's favorable water temperature trend. So they're basing it on that information, and that's usually what you think of when you think of. And I tend to not think about barometer a whole lot, but that's what you tend to think of when you think about what's involved in the biting time. You know, the bite window, the fishing window, and that's how they have it explained. So that's perfect. I'll go by their explanation. But yesterday was really interesting. It's been tough fishing here in Florida lately. They just had, the pros were down here on the Harris Chain, and they had a lot of people not catching fish. Hammers, not catching fish, and like people bringing in 8-pound bags on the Harris Chain. The Harris Chain, it's not the biggest bass area in Florida, but it's a good one. You can catch 7-pounders out of there. You should. When these guys should, in my opinion. But the conditions just, they weren't biting. And I feel like, I bet you there was guys that did well when the bite did happen. They capitalized, and they were in the right spots when they did bite. It's my opinion from afar that happened. And I mention that because people don't talk about fishing windows enough, I feel like. So if you keep fishing windows in mind, then you can make sure you capitalize. I catch a decent amount of big bass, and people that don't know me think, oh, it's because you fish private lakes. I don't. Like, I have a buddy that has a private lake, and I've filmed hundreds of videos on this channel. I've even removed 100 videos from this channel, and I've fished his lake twice. So I actually don't. I fish public bodies of water. So they see, a video where I show highlights of a dozen 8-pounders I've caught, and they say, you're fishing blah, blah. I'm not. I just went to Lake Kissimmee for the first time, and I caught an 8-pounder the very first time. And that had to do with a bite window, I'm sure, as well. Now, I didn't plan out that bite window, so that definitely worked out in my favor. I did want to fish that outside Kissimmee grass. I was avoiding it because I wanted to practice punching, because I don't ever punch. But they weren't there. Punching was wasting my time. And so I was with Chris Mitchell fishing. When we went out there, when we got out to that outside grass line, we were out there for 10, 15 minutes. I was fishing around lily pads and in the Kissimmee grass. He went out to the main point, and I said, all right, well, I don't want to get in his way or fish behind him. This over here, it's like, it's not a secondary point, but it kind of is, and it kind of comes up over here. If he's fishing there, this is the next best place to fish. So I go up over there, and I position my kayak to fish this edge, and boom, they're there. That big one was there, 8 pounds, 5 ounces. So that bass is coming probably from the main water, So it's coming from the main water to the outside edge of that grass. It came up ready to eat, ready to feed at that moment in time in the afternoon. And that's what it seems like. There's been a bite that occurs in the afternoon lately. And the only reason I notice it is because that's when I'm getting my big fish bites. That's when I'm catching the females lately. I'm not getting out there early, to be honest, so maybe I should get out there earlier, and I'd start catching them in the morning as well. I haven't been out there in the morning. This month I've only fished like 3 or 4 times, and four times I think. And I've caught them in windows. I catch the males here and there throughout the day. Those don't matter. If you're in a tournament and you need to catch a limit, catch 5 fish, go junk fishing, go target lily pads, go do this, go do that. But if you want to find where the big females are, it's usually a different pattern than the males, and it's usually there's a window. Unless you're chasing them around with live scope, and you can do that all day, I mean, more power to you. But when you want to catch these females, there's more to it. There's more to it than just bait choice and how you retrieve your bait. There's more to it, and fishing windows is one of those things that I don't think's talked about enough, and you got to know it if you want to catch these big bass. And it's one of those things that it's gonna help. I know it's gonna help. But let me give you this example. If you, I mean, I think by now people know there is such a thing as fishing windows. If you fish long enough, you know there's such a thing as fishing windows. But it's been tough fishing lately. Me and Dalton were out there, and Dalton Albright, I'll put his Instagram below. He is a hammer. Right now, he's first place in the nation. We're fishing one of these local lakes. We live near each other. And the lake is connected with a bunch of lakes and rivers and stuff. I'm not going to say where it is, but it's a ton of body of water. And frankly, a river connects, I don't know, probably dozens of lakes, to be honest. And those bass will move. So you could show up in a lake and they're not in there. They've gotten in the river and they've gone. Now, there's always going to be some around, but a mass majority might not be there anymore. Well, that's what it seemed like happened, because I got a late start. I showed up out on the water, and I brought a bunch of big baits because he's got, his electronics. He's usually out there on the main water. I don't do a lot of that fishing, so I want to get better at that. So I'm thinking I'm going to tag along with him. He's going to point out a brush pile. He'll toss at it. I'll toss at it. We'll see if I can get on any fish without actually seeing them on a screen. And so that's what I was hoping to do. I rigged up my rods for all these big baits I had tied on. And I get out there. He's pounding the bank. He's doing what I like to do. And my rods weren't even rigged for it and stuff. I had the wrong size line on and everything. And I'm like, oh, okay. All right, well, we'll do this. And but he's telling me he's running around out there and couldn't see him out there. They're either just so, far apart from each other. He wasn't seeing bait fish. He wasn't really seeing the bass out there on the lake. And I know he probably covered a lot of water because, he loves to just chase them around and catch those big ones. And so, he's pounding the bank. So I'm like, all right. So, throughout the day, we both caught like a handful. Maybe he caught more when I wasn't around him. But, we caught a handful of little ones. And at one point, I just caught a little one, but it'd been a while since either of us really caught anything. And he said, I'm going to make a run over to the other side of this bridge. So I'm thinking, oh, he's going to fish near the bridge. It's shade, it's hot in the day and stuff. There's kind of current that runs through there. I'm like, oh, that's kind of smart. Well, actually, on the other side of the bridge, I thought it was like kind of a small area, but it's actually almost like another lake. And so he actually ran to that other lake. I mean, it's connected, so it's one lake, but for the sake of this, another lake. And he ran all the way to the back corner. There was like, I think, a brush pile back there he was targeting. He goes back there, and so he's at the back corner of this. I'm out on this lake, and I decide to go to this main point of this lake. So he goes this way, I go this way, right? And I fish this main point, nothing. And then I go past it, I find some cypress trees and lily pads and some Kissimmee grass, and I'm fishing all up in all of it, getting way back in there in those cypress trees. There were some little ones back in there and stuff, but I'm like, man, I can't find these females. I go back to that main point. I'm talking to him, right? We're texting. And I'm telling him, I've caught a few, but, small, whatever. And he's telling me the same thing. And then I catch a 20-incher right back on that main point. I get back to that main point. So that main point is a good spot to fish because there's deeper water there. Those bass, if there's not bait fish out on the main lake, they got to eat. And that's where this bite window, this fishing window comes into play. So they'll come up shallow. So you have a main point. It's easier for them to hunt in shallow water. There's less place the bait fish can avoid them and what have you. And they'll come up on these main points. It's a high traffic area, especially when you have like a ledge and a flat area. Because this was kind of like, it's really like two main points, a pincher or a mouth of a lake or what have you. But then it goes into another lake. So I don't know if you would call it a. Anyways, it's a main point, right? It's a main point on a lake. I was fishing a crawdad, and I let it sit down there. I dead sticked it, and I caught that bass. I'll show it now. Oh, got one. That's a good one. Can't lose him. Can't lose him. He's in that lily pad. Oh, that's a good one. Oh, that's a good one. We'll take that one. Oh, my goodness. So that was a 20-inch bass. Not a giant, but it's a 20-inch bass. That's a female. In a day that it's tough fishing in Florida, that's really cool, okay? Because to me, it's like this has to be a bite window because I was just here, the fish weren't here, and I went past it and I came back and hit it on the way back. And then I'm messaging him, and as I'm hitting send to send him that picture of that 20-inch bass, he sends me this picture of this 24.75-inch bass, I believe it is. So he sends me an absolute giant like 1 second before me. And I'm like, no way. I got to see where he caught this. Like, he caught it near the bridge. So I go over to the bridge. He's not there. So I'm like, oh, he's back in here. I go back in there. I realize, oh, this place is a lot bigger than I realized. So I go, he's all the way at the complete other end of this lake. So I get over there. He tells me, literally the second he caught it, he sent me the picture, which is what I did with mine. So we caught ours at like the exact same second, or like 1 second difference. That's really weird. 1 second difference? I mean, even on the app, it's telling you the minor times is like an hour period. But the bass bite has been tough. And it just seems like there's just moments where you can catch them. Now, usually I would say that it's not a 1 second deal. You got to catch them in that second or you're not going to catch them. No. But when you catch a fish in one of these windows, put your head down and keep fishing and keep doing the things that you need to do. Make the right decisions and keep catching fish, because sometimes, I mean, there's a lot of times I'm out on the water and, you know, I catch 5, 6 bass, but I caught them in an hour. And the rest of the time out there, I had a little dinky bass bite or something like that, but that was about it. You know, so that's how it is sometimes. So you got to really capitalize on those windows and recognize when they are, in fact, a biting window. And that's probably the best proof of a biting window I've ever had. That was wild. Like, even when I said it to him, like, he was kind of like, huh. Like, at the exact same moment. Like, you try to go, oh, there's got to be another reason for it. No, I really think it's just the biting window. It had to have been. Like, he was trying to catch fish. You know what I mean? For, like, you know, we're both trying to catch fish the entire time. And then we both catch them that exact moment. That's pretty cool. I think that's really interesting. So I just thought I would take this opportunity to talk about biting windows. And I was going to use the footage from the day to make a video for my challenge series. And make sure you're subscribed if you want to watch the challenge series. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. The Florida Kayak Bass Fishing Challenge series. It's a mouthful, I will admit that. But that pretty much sums up what it is. You know, it's for kayaking in Florida, and it's bass fishing, and you know, we're gonna challenge ourselves, and it's a series. So yeah, okay, that's the name. So that's the name of the challenge series. And for the first episode, we went to Lake Kissimmee. The challenge there was we never been there, and I was doing some punching. I never really do punching, and that didn't even pan out. But we caught an 8-pounder, so that was a pretty good day. And then this video, I brought out all these big baits. The video was going to be about fishing big baits, you know, without electronics and stuff like that. I mean, that wasn't going to be the title of the video, but that's essentially what it was going to be. I was going to tag along with Dalton and try to see how lucky I get out there. So that was my plan. And then it ended up being I was just scraping together little fish with small crawdads, you know, and I couldn't even get bit on a stick bait. And had to resort to the crawdads. And, you know, they're still just fresh off the beds, so those crawdads kind of irritate them. So, you know, they seem to be biting the crawdads better than the stick baits. And then on top of that, it's really a gunky bottom, so the stick baits are kind of getting gunk on them, where the crawdads are lighter weight, so they're kind of sitting on top a little better. I mean, I could wacky rig a stick bait, which I am going to do that. I actually want to film a video where I go out there and actually get out there early, pound the bank all day, and one, see if we're catching the big ones in those windows, and then two, obviously see if we're even catching the big ones. But I want to see how well I do, you know, actually having my equipment set up for small baits and go out there and just fish hard just with small baits, pound the banks. And then of course I want to go out there with Dalton if I get a chance, and try to see if I can catch some fish, you know, with just being around him and fishing, piggybacking off his electronics pretty much. So I want to see if I can do that. I think that'd be kind of a cool video. So I decided to use this footage for this because I think this is what's most interesting about that whole video, is that there was this 1 second fishing window, and I just felt like it was a waste of an episode to just show. I mean, I caught a 20-inch bass. That's not bad on a tough day of fishing, but I just felt like this was more interesting, talking about fishing windows. So I hope you all enjoy this. I hope this is helpful in some way. Comment down below something about fishing windows. There's lots of stuff I could talk about, but I mean, there's all sorts of fishing windows. When you really think about it, there's a certain type of bite that opens up all the time, and being able to recognize it and, you know, capitalizing off of it is the real skill. And so if you guys have any information, any knowledge, you want to share it down below, hey, make a comment. I'd love to see it. And that's going to be it for today on Reel Journey. I hope this was helpful in some way. I think that's it. I'm just rambling at this point. I'm out. Peace.